Hello everybody, and welcome to Skill Up Overwatch Communication Tactics. In this video, I'll be talking about some simple, low-level tactics you can use to improve your voice communication in Overwatch. When I say tactics, I mean simple, low-level, minute-to-minute calls you make, as opposed to strategy, which is more high-level team organization sorts of things. The tips I'm giving could apply equally to text chat versus voice chat, but voice chat is definitely a better way to go. If you're not already in voice, you should definitely invest in a $20, $30 microphone and get started. Why is voice so much better than text? Well, a couple obvious reasons. One is you don't need to stop to type, so you can make callouts as you're playing. Also, you don't need to be distracted in order to read it. Having to stop looking at the game and look at the bottom corner of your screen to read can be a big imposition on the rest of your team. You can also communicate more quickly, since most people can speak much more quickly than they can type. And another subtle thing that's pretty interesting is that you can get more depth of information across through voice. This includes things like using the tone of your voice to convey whether a fight's going well or not, and it can also help other people to remember your voice so you don't need to identify yourself as much. Now, let's get into specific tips you can use to improve your communication tactics in Overwatch. To try and get people in voice, try and saying, "Hello, how's it going?" in voice to see if people can warm up and respond. If people aren't in voice chat, try asking them by name to join, like saying, "Hey, player name, can you join voice chat please?" Smiley face. I have had multiple times people say, "I only joined voice because you seemed nice." Silly little things like this can make people get in voice. When you start the round, I like to quickly say what my team comp is, just listing all the heroes, saying, "Okay, on support we have this and this, and then on tank we got this, and for DPS we're this," and then ask your team, "That sound good?" It tends to prime people to get more willing to talk in voice and to be a little more amicable about switching if you need. A really important tip that a lot of people still don't use is to identify yourself when you speak. Don't assume that your team recognizes your voice. For instance, say, "I have Zarya ult," or "Our Mercy got picked," instead of saying, "I have ult," or "I'm down." A more subtle tip that can be really useful to avoid tilt is to use push to talk. The reason to use push to talk to transmit your microphone instead of open mic is that you can more easily vent when your team screws up without letting them know. So instead of having to tell everyone, "Oh my god, that was such a bad play, why did you do that?" you can still say that and feel better about it, but you don't have to press the transmit button so they won't get as tilted. Kinda sounds silly, but honestly it can help. Another tip is to ask for confirmation and repeat yourself if needed. So a lot of times if I'm shot calling and organizing where our team goes at the beginning of the round, I'll say something like, "Okay, everyone ready? Let's go left." Everyone good with going left? And wait until I hear anyone say, "Yep, left's good." Or if I don't hear anything, then I'll just repeat, "Okay, going left." Because people might not hear, they might be away, they might have not heard you, maybe you're mumbling at the beginning. So repeating yourself really quickly like that for important calls can be helpful. Some specific things: always call where an important ult is. So things like soldier ult right of point, or middle or bottom, so people know where to hide from. For instance, if there's McCree ulting, you definitely want to know where to hide. You also want to call out when you're going to use your ult. Even if you can only give your team a 2-second heads up, like, "I'm about to use Shatter," it can really help them get into position and respond more quickly when you use your ult. The worst way to use an ult is to use it on your own without anyone to combo with, so definitely tell your team before you use it. You want to call out where important enemies are, so things like Lucio's watching the ledge, to tell people not to get booped off by Lucio. And especially if you have a vantage point where you can see where the enemy team is, and your team doesn't know which route they're going the middle or flank, call out where the enemy team is. Something like, they're pushing middle right, or 4 enemies on high ground. The main benefit of doing a quick flank is that you can get into position before the enemy team knows where you are. So if the enemy team tries this and you call out where they are, then half their strategy is gone just by you telling your team where they are. You should always call out when you get an important pick or when you get picked. For instance, "Got their Mercy," or "They got our soldier." I'll often say things like, "We got their Mercy," even when a teammate killed the Mercy, because it really doesn't matter who on our team killed the Mercy. I'm not trying to take credit for it, but it's important for our team to know. Another way I like to call out important picks is just a little compliment like, "Nice pick on Widow," if somebody was able to snipe off their Widowmaker, because this helps keep the team positive, and without asking anyone to acknowledge you, lets everyone know how the fight is going. Getting a little more long-term life tip, honestly, I like to say good try or good round after every round, even if you lose. especially if you lose, because in general this helps people stay willing to talk and reduce tilt. It doesn't have to be super sincere or super deep, as long as it's not sarcastic, just say like, good try. Can help people stay in voice and has brought me back from a couple close losses. In that same vein, tell your team when you make a mistake so they know. Things like, our Mercy got picked, so they don't go in and try and get rezzed, or I missed my Earth Shatter. This information you don't want to admit, because you don't want to admit that you just screwed up and queued wrong or anything, but it really will help your team win some fights if they know if you were successful or not. I also like to try and say sorry when I make a mistake, even if my team is being kind of mean about it and knows about it. I found that apologizing almost always gets the team to stop talking and stop getting salty. Now, to evaluate yourself and see if you're actually using these tips well, here are some strategies. These tips are all good and well, but you need to make sure you're actually using them when you play. To evaluate yourself like this, try to record videos of your play and watch them to listen to yourself. If you stream on Twitch and you have that set up, you can check an option in your channel settings to automatically save your recordings for a few weeks, so you can go back and listen to them then. You can also use free programs like OBS Studio, or if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, GeForce Experience, to record yourself locally, and make sure that you have them set up so you can record your voice as well. What you want to watch for is any callouts or comments you say that don't help the team. This can be off-topic comments, vague instructions that don't make sense to your teammates like, look over there, and obvious callouts your team doesn't need to know about. Things like, they have infrasight. Yeah, obviously, of course they have infrasights. We all heard the Widowmaker's voice line the same as you did. Another thing to look for is any wrong calls you make. Things like saying you need healing when you actually didn't, or calling out a position wrong because you weren't paying attention. And look for any other problems with your communication that you would find unhelpful if you were any one of your teammates. For instance, what I found from listening to myself is that I sometimes speak too quickly and not articulately enough, since when I'm listening to my recording, even I can't understand what I'm saying sometimes. So you should definitely be honest with yourself and see what you need to improve to communicate better. Also, pay attention to what calls your team makes that are unhelpful or distracting to avoid making those mistakes yourself in the first place, and look to what calls your teammates make that are helpful and useful, and try and model those. That's it for this video on communication tactics. If you found this video helpful, please consider liking and subscribing for more content on ways you can improve your skill in competitive Overwatch. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.